We're going live in 10, 9.
I thought that was you two at first.
Oh, now
All right.
people will hear my children falling.
All right, I think we're good now. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And first action item is adoption of the agenda. So is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Approval of minutes. We have two sets of minutes. One is the regular meeting from January 19th. Is there a motion to approve as is? A second to the motion to approve as is?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the approval of the minutes for the specially called meeting on February 8th. Make a motion to approve as is. Is there a second?
Aye. Oh, sorry.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
All right. Public comments. Were there any comments, Stephanie?
We did not receive any public comments for tonight.
Okay. Okay, so this is just our regularly scheduled meeting. So we do have a transfer window opening in March. We had hoped to get 5-year projections to look at today. They are not ready yet. Which is fine, because if we have them for the next meeting, we're not going to do those transfers probably until the middle of April or whenever Stephanie can kindly organize them. So just for the sake of all of us to be on the same page, we did get some information this week. We got the 45-day live-in and attend for this year. So if anyone has any questions about that, we could just address that, since that's something that just came to us in the last couple of days and it was revised this week or this past week. Lainey, do you understand like what it is?
Well, I was going to say, Dana and I may both need just kind of someone to walk us through how to read that report and make sure that we're comprehending it appropriately at some point.
Kristen, do you want to do that?
No. I'm just pulling it up though, so I can take a look at it myself.
Okay, I was going to just give you a chance to do it. So you didn't have to hear me talk.
Oh no, we love to hear you talk. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can do my best. Do you mean like literally just explain what one of the charts?
Yeah, and I don't know that, and Dana's going to want to know this too. I don't know that, I think Dana's not with us, so I don't know that we'll have to do this at this moment, but which would probably be better not to, because I need to study it a little bit more first. Maybe that's the best way to do it, and bring questions to you.
That's fine. I was going to say, if you have it in front of you, if you want to pull up page 4, which we can use just kind of as an example.
Mm-hmm.
I might have pulled up a terrible page to use as an example. It's just the first one I showed. Hold on.
And I am having a hard time finding mine. Hold on.
Well, so basically it's the charts in general, because they're kind of all over the place, but it's page 5 on the attend.
Right, but it's page 4, right? The one that shows the.
That's, yeah. So page 4 on the forms, but it's page 5 on your PDF file. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
5 out of 61. So if we're looking at just that page where it shows each district, we're obviously District 2. We have 13,347 District 2 students. And it looks like this accounts for all but 70-ish students, or 68 total. So it's basically showing which of those students attend the school that they are zoned for and which ones do not. And then the alternate charts will show you. I'm doing a terrible job explaining, Pamela. Can you do this?
Okay, all right. There's for each, it's very, very simple. For each of the schools, there are 2 tables. The first table is going to tell you basically all of the kids, it'll say schools attended by students living in this zone. So anybody in, for example, Bell Hall, anyone who's living in Bell Hall, it lists all of the schools that possible students who could go to Bell Hall because they're zoned for Bell Hall go to. Most of them go to Bell Hall, but for example, there might be a few that go to Jenny Moore or Laurel Hill or the Montessori school. Then opposite it is another table, and it basically tells you the opposite. So it tells you in that zone, students who, out of zone students who are, where the students are who are, no, now I went and did it wrong. The students who are there, what schools they should be zoned for. So if there is, so if the first table tells you anyone who lives in Bell Hall, these are the schools that they go to. Most of them go to Bell Hall. There's a few that go to other schools. The other table shows you these are the students who currently go to Bell Hall, and these are the schools that they're actually zoned for. So most of them are zoned for Bell Hall, but there are some that are zoned for other schools. So it basically shows you where they go if they actually live in Bell Hall, if they don't go to Bell Hall, and where they go if they're actually going to Bell Hall, but they don't live in Bell Hall. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yes.
Okay, so really the takeaways from that, and again, this is a 45-day from this past year, is just to give us an idea, and you can quickly kind of draw some conclusions that most of the kids are going to their neighborhood schools, with the exception of, at Lang, where we have more people who are able to go in because it's a partial magnet. But you will see, for example, there are a few schools where we're getting more of an influx. For example, if you look at St. James Santee, and you notice that a lot of there are 70 of their students who go to D2 schools. And so it's just for us to keep in mind that we get a lot of kids coming in from that particular zone. And just for us to keep an eye on it. It's just more like trends and a way for us to kind of go, okay, is there something that's kind of being thrown off for some reason? You can get an idea when you look at JBE, there's a certain amount of kids that go to a partial magnet that is Sullivan's Island. You can kind of see over the last few years that's always been kind of the same amount of students. I think if we saw something that was an anomaly, it might point us to go, wait, what's happening here? But if you look through the numbers and something seems weird to you, just bring it up. It didn't look weird to me, but it seemed to be fairly in line with what usually happens. Originally, the idea for this call on the discussion was because we do have an open transfer window starting next month. And we will have, last year, we had certain language that we put up on the transfer window. And I did ask Mr. Olson for that window, for that information of what we put up. And he did give it to me. However, he did say that we put it up there specifically because Lucy Beckham was a brand new school. So what we put up last year was, in May of 2019, the D2 Constituent Board voted to allow no transfers into Lucy Beckham High School for the school year 2021. This is consistent with previous decisions for the opening of new schools to ensure a successful startup, since there is no historical information on the number of students who will attend from within the zone. We can't put that up again because it's no longer a new school. What will happen, and we don't have it's only a draft, is what will happen is when the window opens, it will indicate to parents who go to do a transfer which schools are not accepting transfer applications. We always get transfer applications for these schools, but it basically tells them that these schools are reaching capacity. We don't have room in them. For us in D2, it will likely be a list that includes Bell Hall, Mount Pleasant Academy, Whitesides, Pinckney, Laurel Hill, Carolina Park, Moultrie, Cario, Wando, and Beckham. And again, there might be some questions about, and Trey brought up a good question. Well, Wanda's really big and we have a lot of capacity, but as we know, they have to have the teachers in place for them to have a certain amount of students. So and they are making it based on their projections for school population next year.
Pamela,
Anyway, so go
is
ahead.
that basically going up on the website almost, or maybe Carolyn can answer this, but is it almost like more of a disclaimer for the parents to just give them a heads up that there's probably at capacity at whatever school they're applying to?
Yeah.
Okay.
To set realistic expectations of how likely it is.
Okay.
As it is explained to me, because then otherwise everyone's going to try to, I mean, people will still apply, but it'll cut down our applications, hopefully considerably. So we are hoping to have numbers, projections for next year and the next 5 years, hopefully by the next meeting. Does anyone have any information that they need? Do they have any questions? You know, we will go through each of the transfer requests as we usually do. There is, which we included for this meeting, 2 policies for you to have looked at. It's called JFABC and JFABCA. And both of those are basically kind of the overarching policy that transfers are based on and that we use for the most part to determine how we decide if a transfer is going to be approved or denied. So, you know, that language is the way it stands right now. It can be changed in the future. It has not been changed right now, but you know, we are supposed to judge our transfers based on that criteria.
And Pamela, this may be a question for another time, but when we get into transfers or with those schools that you mentioned that are getting full, do we do a wait list type of scenario with
Right.
request,
So
or we just deny?
right. So for schools that if someone meets that criteria and we feel that we should accept the transfer, they will be put on a waiting list. And then there is a lottery to determine if there is room. There will be a lottery to determine who is able to get into that school.
That's right.
All right.
Like you don't need to worry about capacity because you're just approving the transfer and only if there's capacity would anyone be admitted.
Right. Does that make sense, Lainey?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So like I said, originally new business action item was to see whether or not we could put anything back up. But I think that it looks like the transfer window will basically indicate that most of our schools are full. So I don't think there's anything we need to do unless somebody has something to say. All right. So Carolyn, why don't we hand it over to you? Is there a district report of any kind, of any news that we need to know about?
I know that the Toshiba had shared with this board, I think the whole board, the D1 student achievement results, but following the students who had been attending Lincoln, who went to Wando, and how those students are doing. I would just call that out. I think from my perspective as the academic, it's really good news that overall students who are attending Wando are higher than the district average in terms of readiness for college, ACT scores, level of rigor of the classes that they're taking in their grades. So on multiple measures, that was a change that was a good thing for the academic health of those students and offers them more options in terms of instructional courses. So just to call that out and see if there were any questions as folks look through that data. And the other thing is that at the board meeting, the committee of the whole meeting most recently, we went through student academic achievement results coming out of the MAP test which was administered in the winter, actually earlier than we typically administer it in December, and then compared to the fall test scores. The overall story is relative to other districts. Certainly, we're still performing above average. Some of the math loss that we saw at the beginning of this year has gone away. And on average, we're seeing gains in terms of percentage of students meeting their growth goals in mathematics. So the new curriculum and the focus on math is paying off. We do have gaps in reading, which we're going to need to focus on, and potentially over the next few years do a new English language arts curriculum to address that. And there are particular worries in some grade levels, specifically early childhood. And also it's important to remember that a subset of parents kept their students home in CD because there wasn't enough positions, because we did smaller class sizes, or in kindergarten, given they could keep them in daycare. So we have work to do in early childhood, pre-K through K, and then also second grade scores were lower than the average. That's another place for us to focus. But the overall story, I think, is where we see gaps, it's often our online learners that are behind. So that does speak to the fact that opening school is better, not just for academic health, but as we reported out to the community earlier, for health, period, in that there's less spread in schools of the virus than there is out in the community. So to the extent that we can, we're strongly encouraging families that are in a position to do so because of the health of their child and their family to send their child back to school in person.
I think I saw or heard a report today that overall South Carolina schools didn't look so good on their the gap from last year. So I guess Charleston County is doing better than most.
We are. It's all relative, right? There's not a district-wide COVID slide, which I think really matters, but there is targeted places where we have real gaps. And that would be a lot of students who are working online and not signing in regularly, not completing assignments.
And you mentioned an ELA curriculum, potentially a shift in that. Is that something that is like a federally, is it state mandated? It's not federally mandated, right?
No, it's definitely not federally mandated, and the state mandates curriculum standards, so the actual content, but not the specific curriculum. Okay. They do pay for curriculum that meet those standards, but South Carolina is behind in the ELA. They haven't had an adoption in 8 years, and they don't think they're going to be able to do it again for another 2. So we did this with math as well. We got a little bit ahead of the state adoption and started to adopt a new, and then once the state adopted a curriculum that was the one that we adopted, we can go to the state to pay for the rest of the cost of that.
Okay.
So,
any other questions for Carolyn? One quick thing, we actually have our next meeting, which I think we might have decided upon before e-learning days. March 15th is an e-learning day. It is part of a 3.5-day weekend. We have our meeting scheduled for that evening. I just wanted to check and see in case anyone was planning on being out of town because it was a long weekend and didn't think they could make it, in which case we could possibly change it to the 16th. But admin
Let's change it to the 16th. Give them the holiday.
Well, it's not a holiday. It's an e-learning day. So Stephanie still works and Miss Belcher still works.
And any student who would have a discipline case should also still be doing schoolwork that day too. Theoretically.
So yeah, it was just more to check in and make sure that we would have a quorum.
I don't think I'll be going anywhere. So
okay. All right. Lainey, will you be okay for that day? Okay. And Trey?
Yep. Still at home.
All right. We'll keep it as the 15th. All right. I think that's it then. We can adjourn this meeting unless anyone has anything to say. All right. In that case, I'll make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you guys.
I feel like
Have a
there
good
should be
evening.
some prize for a half-hour meeting though.
Don't get used to it.
Okay. Have a good evening.
Bye.
Bye.
The prize is the freedom of the rest of your evening.
Yes.
See y'all.